Right. So, yeah, so basically David's one of these fighters. I mean, listen, he's on a great knockout run, but he don't look for the knockout. If it comes, it comes. He don't predict a round, or he don't predict an outcome. He just wants to get the win. So that's how he'll tell you the answer, really. He never says he's going to knock anybody out or what he's going to do, but I think he's confident, but obviously he don't predict how the outcome's going to be.
Another question for you, Carl, kind of from your perspective, seeing as, going back to his loss against Kavaliauskas, what are some of the changes that you've seen in David from that moment to where he is today?
He learned so much in that fight. I mean, he underperformed. He knew that. When he got out of the ring, he was so frustrated. And I think since that fight, he's become a different person. He's a different animal, a different mentality, and just the way he's approaching everything now. And I think he learned so much from that defeat. It really hit him hard, that defeat did. I think, obviously, Kavaliauskas is a Lithuanian guy as well, and the little Russian and Lithuanian connection. And he knew a few people that knew Kavaliauskas and that. So it affected him quite bad, that loss. And he went away, regrouped, and just become a different person, a different fighter after that defeat. And you could see on his run he went on in Bilbao when he went and won the European title that he was a different animal by the time it come to that fight.
Final question for me. Looking at Josh Kelly in comparison to the other opposition that David's faced over the course of his career, where does he fit in? Is he the best opponent, or do you think that maybe he's 3 or 4?
Yeah, he's definitely not the best opponent David's boxed. I mean, style-wise, he's a little bit different to what we're used to, so which will be a bit of a different obstacle for David to master, really. But he's a different opposition in style-wise, but I don't think he's the best opposition that David boxed. I mean, you can just look through David's record and who he's boxed, and he's boxed some really good fighters who I believe is a level above Josh. But it's an interesting one. I mean, it's a clash of styles. And it's a totally different style to what David's been used to, but one that we're confident of breaking. Thank
you very much, Carl, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. If we go to Danny Flexen from Seconds Out next, I can see David's on with us now. I'm presuming his sound is working. So, Dan, if you want to ask David a question, we'll just see if he can hear us first.
He appears to be pulling his ear in a manner that indicates he can't hear what we're saying. But
right, okay.
I can ask to Carl. I can ask to both guys if you can hear. That'd be great, but it's fine. Carl, given the pandemic and how long everyone's spent out of the ring, would you have preferred that David's last few fights he'd have spent a bit more time in the ring and got a few more rounds in, given that now it's a long period of inactivity followed by 3 blast outs in a row?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you look at it. I mean, the good thing is David's had fantastic sparring. I mean, I know it's not the same as the competitive fighting on the night, but he's had fantastic sparring. And them 3 stoppages back to back in Spain have done his confidence a world of good. I mean, his confidence is on a different level now to what it was before. I mean, you can imagine going all the way to Bilbao as a massive underdog and stopping Kerman. I mean, Kerman was a formidable champion. Everyone was saying he was going to be the next big thing, and obviously he's had wins over Bradley Skeet, Frankie, Gavin, Denton, Fazal. So for David to go and do a number on him and win the European title, go back and stop him in a round, and then obviously have the routine stoppage over Del Rio, his confidence is so high. And luckily, as a trainer, I've managed to get in some fantastic sparring. And you got to remember, obviously, with all the pullouts and that, we've had sparring in every single camp leading up to the pullouts. So he's not going to be ring rusty. And it's the same amount of time that Josh has been out of the ring as well. I mean, he boxed a week after David. So, I mean, I think more with Josh's style, it'll affect him more than it will David.
And just a second one from me. We obviously saw the show on Saturday night. Kiko Martinez, Zelfa Barrett specifically, Eddie Hearn wasn't pleased with the wide scorecards particularly, and just talked about how difficult it might be attracting foreign fighters to the UK going forward because of the decisions. Does that enter into your mind at all? It can't enter into David's, of course, but you as the trainer and the manager and so on. Do you think about decision if it's a close fight?
Yeah, well, I've looked at the judges that's been been put on for this fight, and I'm pretty happy with them. But funny enough, saying that, David must have had some friends messaging him about the decision, and he's saying to me, "Are we going to be okay with these judges? Who's judging the fight?" And it's concerned him a little bit, but I've told him not to worry. And I said, "Listen, it won't go to the judges' scorecard. You're going to be stopping him, mate." So, listen, I've just tried to keep him mentally strong and just not think about the judges. But it is a big thing now. I mean, obviously, everyone's speaking that British judges are really bad, and coming to England's as bad as going to any country in the world now to get a decision. So it has played on his mind. A lot of people's been in his ear who's seen the boxing at the weekend. So, yeah, but I'm just trying to keep positive and just saying, look, it won't be going to the judges' scorecards. I'm happy with who's been put on for this fight. And let's hope we can not even go to the judges.
Cheers, Carl. Best of luck for Saturday.
Thank you, Danny.
Thanks, Danny. If we go to Ames from Boxing News TV next, please. We are working to try and get David back on, but in the meantime, Carl can answer any questions for you. Cheers.
Ames here for Boxing News TV. Pleasure to meet you, Carl. How you doing?
How you doing? You're right.
I'm not too bad at all. I've seen rumours on social media about the potential for David to sign with Matchroom after this fight. I know that Al Siesta had pitched David years back and it didn't quite materialise. To your how aware of you is there of a deal being in place for David to sign with Matchroom should he beat Josh Kelly?
No, I'm only David's trainer. I'm not his manager, Neil Marsh's. But as far as I'm aware, David is a Matchroom fighter now.
Okay.
He's done a 3-fight deal with Matchroom. I don't know whether it started with the Del Rio fight or from when he fights Josh. But yeah, he's a Matchroom. From what I can gather, he's a Matchroom fighter now.
Okay, and there's been back and forth with the build-up between Neil Marsh, Adam Booth, Josh Kelly. From your point of view, and from David's point of view, from what you know, is this personal?
I mean, David hasn't took anything personal because he's not that sort of kid. I mean, and I'm just doing my job as a trainer. But Neil was very upset at what Adam did with a pull-out. He knows more about it than me. He said that he saw Adam packing his car and had no intention of that fight going ahead on the day of the fight on the morning, but left it until like after doing the rules meeting on the day when they didn't agree rounds. The rules meeting should have been the day after the weigh-in, but the rules meeting went ahead on the day of the fight about 12 o'clock because there was an argument over the rounds. We was told it was a 12 round and Neil had a contract for a 12 rounder. Adam Booth was adamant it was only a 10 rounder. So that was the back and forth to start with. And then when we come to the rules meeting, Adam just didn't seem interested, didn't take the gloves out to check them or anything. And then within an hour of going back to my room, I was told the fight was off. So it's personal with Neil. He took it bad because he knows that there's more gone off than meets the heart, meets the eye.
Josh Kelly, he's deemed as one of the biggest talents in the British boxing scene. Do you think Josh Kelly, whether he wins against your fighter or not, is someone who can make it to the top of the sport?
Sorry, my phone bleeped then. Just say that again.
Sure, of course. So Josh, he's kind of deemed as one of the biggest talents in the British boxing scene. Do you think Josh Kelly, whether he wins against David or not, is someone who can make it to the top of the sport?
Listen, he's being fast-tracked. I mean, listen, you got to give him credit. He's never boxed a kid without a winning record, so you got to give him full plaudits there. But when you look at some of the lads he has fought, they've not been strong welterweights. They've been blown up light welterweights. He's had a lot of physical advantages over him. I mean, you've got to give him credit for the Ray Robinson result. I mean, you've got to remember that Ray Robinson drew with Kowalskis and Kowalskis stopped David, albeit it wasn't the David that it is now, far from it. So he has got the potential and obviously that to go on to do big things. I just think this fight's one or two fights too soon for him. I really believe that David's got his number. Style-wise, it's very interesting. It could go two ways. I mean, Josh could outbox David for the old 12 rounds, or David can grind him down and stop him. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting fight. That's just why everybody's talking about it, and everybody wants to see this fight because we just don't know how it's going to go. We know in our mind how it's going to go, and they believe in their mind that how it's going to go. So it's a very, very interesting fight. But he's definitely got the potential to do very, very well. Whether to reach the top of the mountain, I don't know.
Appreciate that, Carl. All the best for the weekend.
No problem.
Thanks, James. We go to Deck Taylor from The Independent next, please.
Yeah, nice one. Carl, just picking up on something you said there about it might be a couple of fights too early for Josh. Obviously, he's seen as a work in progress, but how different do you feel he is now than he was way back in, December 2018 when, the fight was first supposed to happen? Do you feel like it'll be different now and better now? Is it a harder fight, however long, what are we now, 2 years down the line?
Yeah. He's been in with, the Ray Robinson fight was a good fight for him. You know what I mean? He would have learned a hell of a lot in that fight, but he didn't look very good in his last fight against Winston Campos. I've took a lot of confidence from that fight. I think he struggled, to be honest. He was missing a lot. He was getting caught. And the kid was a blown up light welterweight who lasted 2 rounds with Josh Taylor. You know what I mean? So if Josh Kelly, and he was there to make Josh look very good that fight. So if Josh is going to go on to do massive, massive things, he should be stopping them sort of kids like Josh Taylor did. So I don't think he's improved. I just think he's got that style where he'll look fantastic against certain opposition who can't deal with his trickiness and his awkwardness. But I just don't think he can sustain attacks, and I just don't think he can fight at an high tempo. And I just think David's all wrong for him, in my opinion. But we'll see. Listen, this is what's making it an intriguing fight. But he's obviously gone away and improved a bit since the 2 years because, Adam believes he's ready now. I honestly believe he didn't think he was ready 2 years ago. He said he thought he was ready and he was ill, but why has it took so long for this fight to go on? I know we've had the postponements with the COVID, but it should have happened probably 6 months after the pull-out the first time. Luckily, it never, because we went on to win the European title, and it's made it a much bigger fight now.
Just one on the crowd, obviously lack of crowd. We saw on Saturday that it was obviously a bizarre kind of fight and a mad result in the end. But Josh Warrington's someone who, is used to massive crowds. But even having said that, I'm guessing all boxers is going to find it strange, really. How do you combat that? How do you go about making sure it feels like a fight from the start and not like a spar or not like the sort of abnormal situation that it is?
Yeah, I've been involved in 2 or 3 of these now, and it is a very, very strange atmosphere. You could hear a pin drop sometimes, and all you can hear is the corners speaking, really. But I just don't know how. You just don't know until you're actually in there with the fight, how the fight is going to react to it. You know what I mean? Some react to it a lot better than others. Some can take it on board just like a relaxed a spar, really. It just feels like you're in a sparring environment. Some can handle that better than others. Some need a crowd behind him. I really think that Josh Kelly needs a crowd because he fights. That's the sort of style he is. He fights for the crowd. So that's an interesting one. But I don't think it'll affect David. I really don't.
Nice one. Thanks very much. Cheers, Carl. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dick. If we go to Ron Lewis from Boxing Scene next, please.
Hi, Carl. Are you well? Can you give us a bit about how you first became trainer of David and your first thoughts of him when you first worked with him? Because obviously you're well known as a good promoter. I remember you fighting Alex Arthur and people like that. But to suddenly get this world-class Russian walk into your gym, how did that come about? And how was your first thoughts when it happened?
Yeah, people forget that obviously my main role, really, even though I've been a promoter from the start. I've actually had a trainer's license since 2000, and that was the days when I was still boxing. I've been training fighters for many, many years, but I've never been given a top elite fighter. You know what I mean? I've always been given average kids and done the best I can with him, or brought them through myself. I brought kids through from the bottom to British champion, you know what I mean? The likes of Sam Bowen and lads like that. He wasn't an amateur superstar. He was a very good fighter. But I've always been around and trained fighters, but never really been involved with an elite level fighter. David is in that category. I've known Neil Marsh a long, long time. We were putting shows together back in 2008 with the late Oliver Harrison. And David got older David. And he wanted to get him involved with an English trainer. So he took him around a few gyms and he brought him to me. he'd already had a fight with Dean Byrne in England at Blackpool, which me and Neil did a joint show on that together, which showcased him. He looked fantastic, and I never had a clue that he'd be bringing him to me to look at as a trainer. And then he went around a few gyms, and Neil brought him to me, and he gelled with me brilliant. We had a great relationship from the start. We had a couple of sessions, and he told Neil that he wants to choose me as his trainer, which was great for me. And my first fight with David was with Charlie Navarro for the WBA interim world title. So I was chucked in pretty deep. We had a great win. And the next one was Sugar Shane Mosley. So it's been a fantastic journey. We've had 8 fights together, 6 wins, 2 defeats, one against Lamont Peterson and Kowalowski. So that's how the story went, really.
What's he done to the other kids in the gym who get to work alongside him?
Well, to be honest with you, we don't do very many sessions with anybody else. We do a lot of one-to-ones. We only bring people in the gym when it's for sparring, really. We do a few fitness sessions with the other lads, but we don't do a lot of boxing sessions with the other lads. I mean, over the years, he has mixed in with a few. He's done a bit of sparring with my other lads, and they've done a couple of rounds in and out with him, because he's one of these fighters, David. After 4 or 5 rounds, he starts beating you up, you know what I mean? He's that physically strong and wears you down. He's that sort of kid. So I haven't really been using a lot of my fighters, but no, everybody gets on well with him. He's a great lad to have around the gym, and he's a big name, and a lot of the lads respect him and look up to him.
And he lives when he's training in Newark, does he?
He don't live with me, no. When he first come over, he couldn't speak a word of English 5 years ago, or 6 years ago now. So Neil got him an English teacher, and he was staying at an hotel called the Dane Court in Newark. They were feeding him 3 times a day, and he was living there basically for 6-7 weeks before a fight, obviously training with me. But the cost of it was extortionate. It was getting expensive and that. And funny enough, he'd become quite friendly with his Russian teacher and her family. So he's ended up staying there now for his camps. Obviously, they've got the same mentality, obviously the same culture and that. So it works better for him, and they get on really well. And since he's been staying there, he's really enjoyed it, and it's made my life a bit easier as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Carl. Speak to you soon.
No problem.
Thanks, Ron. If we go to Matt from Behind the Gloves next, please.
Hiya, Carl. Appreciate your time, bud.
Hiya, mate.
Coming into this fight on Saturday then, what weaknesses do you specifically see in Josh Kelly that David can exploit? Is it just purely down to experience and who he's been in with in comparison to Josh?
No, I mean, obviously they're 2 main factors, but I just don't feel that that Josh can live with David's intensity and his pace and the way he boxes and how hard he hits to the body. I mean, you've seen it with Josh before. He'll fight in bursts, and then he'll want to have a rest for 30 seconds. You know what I mean? He'll get on his bike and do his showboating and not throw hardly any punches. Then he'll come back and have a burst. Well, he's not going to be able to do that with David. You know what I mean? David's an aggressive, hard punches hard with both hands solid, and he'll be on him like a rash. And I just don't think that Josh will be able to live with David's intensity.
So, looking at the current landscape of the welterweight division, it's always red hot. David's currently a European champion. I know you won't be looking past Josh whatsoever, but providing he does get the victory on Saturday, if there's any welterweight in the world you would like to see him in with, some of the current world champions, who would you want to see him in with?
Well, I mean, I think he deserves probably a world title fight, or at least a final eliminator. I mean, you got to remember this will be his 3rd defence of the European title. He's already been at world level. He's obviously come back down to European level when people thought he was finished after Kowalowski's defeat. So I think he deserves another crack at a world title. I mean, I'm not really bothered who. It just depends who obviously we can get. But one fight that really eats away at him is the Kowalowski's defeat. So depending where Kowalowski's is at the time, I mean, that could even be made for an eliminator for a world title, because I mean, he went 9 rounds with Terence Crawford, and he's come back with a couple of wins, so he's going to be back in the picture as well. He's highly ranked across the board. So David liked to put that one, reverse that decision. But listen, other than that, we'll just have open to any big fight after this. I mean, final eliminator or even a world title fight.
No worries, bud. Appreciate your time and good luck for Saturday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. If we go to Devinder Powell next for the boxing voice. Just got to go off mute, Devinder. There you go.
No, I should use.
There you go.
Hey, Carl, you okay?
How you doing? You okay?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. So yeah, the question for me was, considering how many times this fight's been postponed, rearranged, Neil Marsh was obviously upset, and your plans have changed. What kind of things have you been doing in terms of prepping David for this? Because you've had so many dates. I mean, I know you train currently with Eka Usman as well. And have you changed the game plan up slightly, or is it still going to be the same game plan come Saturday night?
No, like I've said to people, I mean, we haven't really had to change a lot because we know what we're getting with Josh Kelly. I just think that the postponements made David more of an angry fighter, mate. He wants to, you know what I mean? Whether it's sort of not all been Josh's fault, I know obviously we've had the COVID and that, but you got to remember, David comes over from Russia. He leaves all his family behind. He gives everything up. He's had to spend all Christmas and New Year with me in England. So obviously, back to your question, we haven't really had to change anything. We know what we're going to do. We've been working. I mean, I've had 26 weeks with David for this one person. With all the pullouts, I've worked out we've done 26 weeks worth of training for this one fighter. You know what I mean? So I feel like we've covered everything really, and there's not much more we can do. I mean, listen, if you gets beat, he's been beat by the better man, but I can honestly say as a trainer, there's nothing much more I can do. I mean, I've had 26 weeks of work on everything possible, so let's just see.
Good stuff. Best of luck on Saturday night.
No problem. Thank you.
Next, if we go to Boxing UK, please, Steve.
Hi, Carl. It's Steve from Boxing UK.
Hiya, mate. You okay?
Yeah, nice to see you again.
You, mate.
Carl, a lot of people are asking what David's game plan will be on Saturday, but are you prepared for Josh Kelly's game plan? Do you think it's going to be the same Josh Kelly that we've seen before?
I don't know. I mean, listen, however I think Josh can approach the fight, I just don't think he'll be able to beat Dave unless he's a different animal to what I've seen in his previous contests, because I don't think he'll be able to push David back. I just don't think he's strong enough. I don't think he can sustain the pressure. If he gets on the back foot, you can only move for a certain length of time with the likes of David, because he'll hunt you down and he'll be pushing you back in that. And you've got to be some sort of fighter to be able to keep someone like David off for 12 rounds. So we're prepared for a Josh to come and have a fight, or Josh to get on the back foot and box him. You know what I mean? I think I don't know what sort of game plan they've got, but I'll be very, very surprised if they try and meet David head on.
And just a final one from me, Carl. There was some very quick, unsubstantiated rumours yesterday that Adam Booth had COVID and the fight was off again. When can fans rest assured that this is definitely happening?
Well, listen, I've heard that Adam's already had COVID a long time. You know what I mean? So he's okay. I think it was just rumours again. I mean, this is what it's crazy game, isn't it? I mean, I was in bed last night and I woke up this morning to alert. No idea, mate. No idea. But I'll be absolutely devastated if he has. But now I think rest assured we're going to be okay, mate. As long as we pass the test, we've had the COVID test. We've got no symptoms whatsoever. So fingers crossed that we're all good.
Lovely. Good luck, Carl. Take care.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks, Steve. If there's no more questions for Carl, we'll let him get off. I'll just wait one moment in case there's any last-minute questions that come through.
Yeah, I've got one, Dan.
Yeah, do you want to jump in, mate, to finish things off, and then we'll get Josh on. Cheers.
Perfect. Hello, Carl. How you doing?
How you doing? All right?
Yeah, good, mate. In terms of, you mentioned, obviously, last time round is meant to be a couple of years ago, and you've seen the changes since the loss to Kavalauskas. What has changed in David's mentality going into this fight, with the frustration as well thrown in there?
I think mentally he's become a different person. It really set him back, that defeat. He was heartbroken. And I've changed things up in training a little bit more. I mean, it were always a small welter, David. He was giving a hell of a lot of size away on the night. I mean, I can remember when he was boxing a few years back, Kowalski and Peterson, he was putting half a stone on after the weigh-in. Them guys was putting like 18 pound on. You know what I mean? There was so we've changed the rehydration now. We've changed the training program. I've got him eating a bit more and doing a lot more strength work in that. So he'll get in the ring a lot bigger now than what he used to do. So that's one thing you learn from the Kowalskis. I mean, the size difference was ridiculous, and that defeat hurt him, and he's come back a completely different fighter.
Perfect. Top man, Carl, let you go.
No worries, mate.
Thanks for your time, Carl. We'll see you in the bubble tomorrow, mate.
Top man. Thanks, Dan. Cheers, mate.
Yes.